My parents kicked me out at 18 and said, "Your brother deserves the future and not you." I fell sick and was homeless. 5 years later, my brother walked into my office and said, "We're here to seek for your help." I was shocked. I remember the morning clearly. The sun was bright. I could smell Mom's cooking downstairs, and I foolishly thought she had made something special because it was my birthday. But when I entered the living room, my parents were sitting stiffly on the couch, my younger brother Daniel standing between them with a smirk on his face as if he knew something I didn't. My name is Melissa. And the day I turned 18, my life ended and began at the same time. "Sit," my dad said. His tone was cold, rehearsed. My stomach tightened, but I sat. Mom avoided my eyes. Dad exhaled sharply. "You're 18 today. An adult. And we've made a decision for the future of this family." I frowned. "What decision?" Dad folded his hands together. "We're not supporting you anymore." It felt like someone had punched me. "What?" "I'm still in school. I have a year left." "You'll figure it out," Dad responded. "You're smart. You're capable. But the truth is, your brother deserves the future. Not you." I blinked, unable to process. "What does that mean?" Mom finally looked at me, and the guilt in her eyes burned. "Dan needs resources. Tutors. Classes. Opportunities. And we can't afford to split everything between two children." "You're kicking me out," I whispered. "For him." Daniel didn't even pretend to be sad. He only looked proud, like he'd won some competition I never agreed to be part of. Dad nodded. "We've packed your things. You can leave today." "Leave to where?" I cried. "You have to learn how to survive." He shrugged. "Life is not fair. You'll manage." Mom said softly, "You're a girl. You'll find someone to help you." I felt something inside me shatter. They pushed a small duffel bag into my hands and opened the door. No birthday. No cake. No celebration. Just exile. That was the beginning of a nightmare I didn't know I would survive. For the first 2 nights, I slept on a friend's couch, embarrassed and terrified. I didn't tell anyone what truly happened because I didn't want pity. But the friend's parents said I couldn't stay long, and by day 3, I was sleeping at a bus station, hugging my bag to my chest, praying no one would rob me or worse. I found a job at a fast food place, but the pay was barely enough to buy cheap food. I couldn't afford a room. So I slept behind the restaurant dumpster, using cardboard as a mattress. One night, it rained so heavily that the boxes disintegrated, and I ended up shivering under the roof of an ATM booth. That night, fever took over me. My body was burning, my throat was on fire, and every inch of me hurt. I was alone. Abandoned. Unwanted. At one point, as I lay curled in a corner, I whispered, "God, if you want to take me, I'm tired." But something in me refused to die. Maybe it was stubbornness. Maybe anger. Maybe the last ember of hope. The next morning, delirious with fever, I fainted outside a small clinic. I woke up in a white bed, and 4 in my arm, a nurse handing me water. "Someone brought you in," she said. "A man who saw you collapse." I never met the man. He didn't leave his name. The clinic treated me for severe flu, dehydration, and malnutrition. The bill. $73. I couldn't pay it. But the nurse told me the doctor had written it off. "There are still good people in the world," she said gently. "Don't quit yet." That sentence saved me. Over the next months, I worked multiple jobs: waitressing, cleaning, washing dishes, and assisting at a small office. I barely slept, barely ate, but I saved every coin I could. Eventually, I rented a tiny room with cracked walls and a leaking ceiling. But it was mine. It was a beginning. At 19, I started taking online classes at night. Business administration, accounting, sales, it didn't matter. I learned everything I could. At 20, one of the small offices I cleaned noticed my work ethic and hired me as a receptionist. At 21, I became an assistant. At 22, a company executive saw how efficiently I handled reports and recommended I apply for an internal scholarship they offered for higher education. I got it. They paid for my degree. I worked twice as hard as everyone else. I didn't have family to fall back on. Failure was not an option. By 23, I was working in corporate strategy, earning more in a month than I used to earn in 6. By 24, I became the assistant to a CEO. And at 25, everything changed. Because at 25, I became the CEO. Not of that company, but my own. Using every skill I had learned, every scar I had gathered, and every humiliation I had suffered, I built my own consulting firm from scratch. It started with one desk, one laptop, and one client. Within 2 years, we had 40 employees, international clients, and contracts worth millions. People applauded my success. They called me brilliant, ambitious, a prodigy. They didn't know the truth. I wasn't brilliant. I was betrayed. And betrayal is the greatest fuel in the world. 5 years after my parents kicked me out, on a quiet Tuesday afternoon, my secretary buzzed into my office. "Ma'am," she said, "there are 2 people here insisting they know you. A couple. And a younger man. They say it's urgent." My heart stilled. I knew those voices. Those shadows. Those ghosts. I straightened in my chair. "Send them in." The door opened. And there they were. My mother looked older, tired, fragile, and nervous. My father still stood tall, but the confidence he once carried was cracked. Daniel, now 23, walked in with arrogance, but even that seemed forced. They stared at my office, the marble floors, the floor-to-ceiling windows, the wall of awards. Daniel spoke first. "We're here to..." But he froze, his mouth hanging open. I didn't smile. I didn't stand. I simply folded my hands on my mahogany desk. "Yes," I asked calmly. "You're here to what?" Mom's eyes filled with tears. "Melissa, we didn't know. We didn't know you would survive," I said. Dad cleared his throat. "We're here to talk." "About what?" Silence. I watched them struggle for words. Then Daniel shoved his hands into his pockets. "Our lives fell apart," he blurted. Dad shot him a warning look, but it was too late. I leaned back. "Go on." Mom wiped her eyes. "Your father lost his job. Daniel failed his university exams 3 times. And your father, he used all our savings on private tutors." "Those tutors were supposed to be for me," I reminded them. Dad exhaled shakily. "We made mistakes." I raised an eyebrow. "Is that what you call it?" Daniel looked annoyed. "Look, things are bad, okay? And we heard you're doing well. Really well. So?" I asked. "So?" Daniel swallowed. "We're here to ask for help." I almost laughed. Help. From the girl they abandoned. The girl they left to starve. The girl who became nothing so their son could become everything. I tilted my head. "What kind of help?" Dad hesitated, then said, "Financial help. We're about to lose our house." Mom whispered, "Melissa, please." I felt something cold and heavy inside me. Not hatred. Not anger. Validation. "You kicked me out," I said softly. "You told me my brother deserved the future. Not me." Mom's tears spilled. "We were wrong," Dad said quickly. "But you're successful now. You have more than enough. Daniel added, yeah, share it. I looked at them one by one. Do you know, I began, that I slept behind a dumpster? That I fainted from fever on the street? That I almost died. Mom gasped. Oh God. Do you know, I continued, that not once, did any of you call, text, or look for me? Dad looked away. Daniel muttered, we thought you'd manage. I laughed bitterly. Manage? I was a child. We're family, Mom whispered. Families forgive. I stood slowly. Did you forgive me when you kicked me out? Silence. We had to choose, Dad said weakly. And you chose him, I replied. Daniel stepped forward. Look, just give us money and we'll leave. I stared at him long and hard. Then, I made a decision. A decision 5 years in the making. You want help? I said. They all nodded desperately. Fine. I'll help you. Their faces lit up with relief. But you'll work for it. Dad blinked. Work? I sat back down. Yes. My company has a cleaning department. We're hiring cleaners. You can start tomorrow. All 3 of you. Mom looked horrified. Clean. Melissa. We can't. Then you don't need help. Daniel scoffed. I'm not cleaning anyone's office. Then you don't need help either. Dad's jaw tightened. This is humiliation. No, I said. This is reality. The same reality you threw me into at 18. Mom whispered. Please, we're your parents. And I was your daughter, I answered. Before you made it clear I wasn't. They stood silently, processing the situation. I leaned forward again. If you want my money, you'll earn it. Dad asked quietly. And if we accept? Then I'll pay your salaries like any other employee. But you will start at the bottom. No special treatment. Mom's lips trembled. Are you punishing us? No, I said. Life already did that. I'm just giving you the same opportunity you gave me. Daniel kicked the floor. Unbelievable. Dad placed a hand on his shoulder. We'll think about it. I nodded. The offer expires in 48 hours. They turned and walked out slowly. But just before they reached the door, Daniel spun around. From the way you're acting, he spat. I'm glad we chose me. I didn't flinch. You didn't win, Daniel. You never did. They left. And for the first time in 5 years, I exhaled. The next morning, my secretary buzzed me again. Ma'am, your parents and brother are here. I closed my laptop. Send them in. They entered, all 3 wearing borrowed clothes that looked cheap and uncomfortable. Dad spoke quietly. We accept. I nodded once. Good. And that was how revenge began. Not fire. Not destruction. Not shouting. Just accountability. They worked. Hard. Cleaning toilets. Wiping floors. Emptying bins. Listening to employees half their age give them instructions. Daniel lasted 1 week before quitting and calling me a heartless monster. My parents, however, swallowed their pride. They needed the money. They needed the job. They needed the stability. And slowly, very slowly, they began to change. One evening, when I was leaving late, I saw my mother mopping the hallway. Her hands were trembling, her back aching, but she continued. She looked up at me. I'm sorry, she whispered. And for the first time, I believed she meant it. Dad apologized months later. Quietly, awkwardly, but sincerely. I didn't become their daughter again. But I no longer carried the weight of being their exile. And that was enough. 2 years later, I helped them get a small rented place of their own. Not out of obligation, but because I chose to. Daniel. He hasn't spoken to me since the day he stormed out. Last I heard, he was still blaming the world for his failures. But me. I built my own world. My own family. My employees, my friends, the people who stood by me when blood didn't. My revenge wasn't destroying them. My revenge was surviving without them. My revenge was becoming everything they said I could never be. My revenge was living. And I'm still living beautifully. Every single day.